Good morning, everyone. We are in the kitchen today with some flour and some oil because we are going to be reading a story about a widow that didn't have any money and only had enough flour and oil to make one small pancake for her and her child. But guess what? God provides miraculously through a guy named Elijah, asking her to share her flour and her oil and her last little bit. Let's see what God does. So join me in the classroom and let's read in the Bible. Hey guys, it's Miss Meg here, and
I'm Peter the Pig.
Peter the Pig is here to join us. Thanks for meeting us in the classroom. We're going to read a story today about a guy named Elijah who is a prophet, which just means that God would use him to deliver messages to the people. And we're going to be reading today out of 1 Kings 16 and 17. So you can go and find a Bible or listen up. All right, are you ready, Peter?
I am so ready.
Good. All right, so use your listening ears and listen to the story, and I have some questions for you throughout it, okay? Cool. Before we can learn about Elijah, we need to talk about some background information. King Ahab. So King Ahab. Hey, Peter, do you want to pretend to be a king?
Oh boy.
Oh, this is going to be a big crown on you. Here we go. Perfect. So King Ahab was ruling over Israel, but guess what? He wasn't a very nice king. In fact, in the Bible, it tells us in verse 30 that Ahab did what was evil in the Lord's sight even more than any of the kings before him. What can you think of that might be evil that king might do?
Maybe he wasn't good to the people in his kingdom?
I think you're right. That would be kind of evil. If that wasn't bad enough, he also married an evil woman named Jezebel. And they both worshipped a false god named Baal. Is that how you say it, Peter? How do you think?
I think so.
Someone that wasn't the true God. The Bible tells us that Ahab angered the Lord more than any other king. Because of Ahab's wickedness and his choice to follow a different God, there were consequences. Do you ever have consequences in your house?
Sometimes when I wear big crowns that covers my eyes, is that a consequence?
Definitely a consequence. Now we have Elijah the prophet coming in. So God sent Elijah to King Ahab a very bad message. He said, "As surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, the God I serve, there will be no dew, no rain during the next few years until I give the word." No rain. Are you kidding me?
How are the plants going to grow?
Right. No rain for a few years? What? What would happen if we didn't have rain?
They couldn't grow anything and there wouldn't be water to drink?
There wouldn't be water to drink. Who survives with water to drink?
People and animals need to drink.
Yeah, and we need the plants to eat. It would be bad news. Everything would die without water. So no rain for a few years meant that all of the rivers, all of the wells, all the water sources would completely dry up. The plants wouldn't be able to grow. The animals would die. Many people would also die because they had no water or food. Whew! King Ahab was angry. Show me your angry face. Was mad when he heard this message. But God protected Elijah. The Lord said to Elijah, "Go to the east and hide by the Kerith brook near where it enters the Jordan River. Drink from the brook there and eat what the ravens brought you, for I had commanded them to bring you food." A brook. It's like a river. Let's put this up here. A brook. So luckily, God was providing. Elijah could drink out of this river as he was hiding. You know, that doesn't quite stick, but you get it. All right. But what is he gonna eat? So go to the east and drink from the brook and eat what the ravens bring you. A raven is a big bird. Here comes one out, and it was dropping food. Would you guys eat food that came from a bird's mouth? I think it's kind of cool, but some people might think it's kind of gross. What about you, Peter?
I'm a pig, so I eat all kinds of things. So...
All right, good. You can eat the food that the ravens brought. Not only did God provide a place for Elijah to hide, but he already had a plan how he's going to feed Elijah with the birds dropping food for him and the river brook. the solution only lasted so long. In verse 7, it says, "But after a while, the brook dried up. There was no rainfall anywhere in the land." I'm going to take this down now. There's nothing left in there. And God had another plan for Elijah. In verse 8, he shares it with him. "Go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you." Once again, Elijah trusted God and followed his instructions. He went to Zarephath, and when he arrived, he saw a widow, just as God had promised. What's a widow? Maybe that's a new word we need to talk about.
I don't know. What is a widow?
A widow is someone that doesn't have a husband, and so back then she had to try to find food for all by herself. So we learn in the story that she's kind of poor at the time, and also that drought. I mean, things were probably really expensive. If there hadn't been water for that long, it's going to cost a lot if you're not going to buy anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he arrived at this widow's house, just as God had promised. And he asked her if she could grab him a cup of water and some bread. That's why, like, we were making pancakes in there, like the bread like that. But she says, "I swear by the Lord your God, I don't have a single piece of bread in this house. No bread. All I have is a handful of flour left." So a lot less than this. Like just a scoop of flour. A handful of flour left. And a little cooking oil in the bottom of a jar. A little bit of cooking oil left. "I was just gathering a few sticks to cook the last meal, and then me and my son and I will probably die." The widow was seeing things from a human perspective. All she had was a little bit of flour and oil, and just enough to make one more meal. A tiny little piece of bread left. But Elijah saw what God could do with that flour and oil. He said, "Don't be afraid." Say, "Don't be afraid."
Don't be afraid.
"Go ahead and do just what you said, but make a little bread for me first." Okay? So that widow is going to have to trust God and trust that Elijah is hearing from God and make the bread and give it to Elijah first.
Yeah, if he gets it first, then there wouldn't be any for her and her son.
I bet that's what she was thinking too at first. It's like, have you ever been frustrated when you have like one piece of candy left and then your friend comes up and says, "Hey, do you have any mints? Try it."
Hey, do you have any mints?
I just have one. Okay, I love you. I trust that God protects me and he knows my heart. I want to give it to you.
Oh boy, thank you.
Yep. So let's find out what happens, okay? This is what God does, okay? There will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time that the Lord sends rain and crops to grow again. The widow had a choice to make. She could choose to trust that God would provide bread for her family and make bread for Elijah first, or she could choose to make the last loaf of bread for her family and make bread and her and her son, and let's see what she does, okay? So verse 15, it says, "So she does as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days." Wait, they just had enough for one day. How's this happening?
Must be God that's making it happen.
It's a miracle! Yes, there was always enough. Like this little thing of flour just kept, every day she'd pour it, and there's still more there. Every day, more flour. There was always enough, and always enough oil and left in the containers, just as God has promised. That is so cool. Okay, I have a couple questions about the story for you, Peter.
Okay,
All right.
I'm ready.
I bet you are. So, my first question is, what is the name of the character in our Bible story today?
Elijah.
Elijah, awesome. And what did God do because King Ahab was so evil and disobedient?
There was not going to be any rain from the sky.
And that wasn't a good message. He didn't like that. So Elijah had to go into hiding, and he had to trust God. What did he have to trust God for?
That he would have food to eat.
Yeah, and how did he get the food?
The raven came and dropped off some hamburgers.
Something like that, some food, yep. And what to drink? How did he get that?
God had him rest by a brook that was full of water.
Until it wasn't. But yes, at first it was full of water. And he had some water to drink. And then, after that, how did God provide for him?
He went and lived with the widow.
Mm-hmm.
And the flour and oil never ran out, so they got to eat every day.
The never-ending bread. Wow. Very cool. That's like, I think I have one more question for you. Okay. Now, the widow. How did she have to trust God?
Well, if she gave the food first and God didn't take care of her, then she and her son would be very, very hungry and not have any more. But she trusted God, and he made her have enough food.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Because she trusted God, God provided the flour and the oil for her throughout the drought. That is so cool. We can always trust God. Even like that piece of candy, I wanted to give it to you, but I was like, kind of like, oh, should I not? Well, my friend Heather just rang the doorbell and she dropped off all of this candy. Like, God's going to provide. He's going to provide what we need and what we want and our desires of our heart. So our Bible verse of the day is, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. I have a song for you guys with that verse in it. All right, thanks for joining. We'll see you next week. Bye.